Hey, so thank you for diving into this. This is going to be a little bit boring, but I want to make a video that explains exactly how we came to the final Praisemaggedon output. This is really important, of course, because this was 48% of the final impact hour distribution. So let me share my screen and show you what I'm talking about. Yeah. So this is the final impact hour distribution. We had a vote that was very contentious within the community, and luckily, because of our great cultural build and amazing work from Wonka and conflict management, we had the foresight to say that when votes are really close and there's a contentious situation within the community, that we avoid the polarizing outcome. And instead of having just like, oh, 52% said this and 48% said this, so the 48% lose and the 52% win. That's not actually good for the community as a whole, ostracizing 48% of the community. So instead, for these contentious issues, there's a clause that says, in that circumstance, that the two people who propose need to come and collaborate on a final solution. So Jeff proposed Praisemaggedon and I proposed no intervention. And so we collaborated on a final solution, and this is what we ended up with, giving 48% of the, since Praisemaggedon got 48% of the voting power, they got Praisemaggedon's output got 48% of the impact hour weight. And no intervention got 52% of the weight. And that gave us this final list. So the Praisemaggedon Math, though, wasn't completely sorted in the proposal. So YGG, me, Jeff, Livia, Zeptimus, Wonka, Ivy, Frashell, like so many people. And of course, Vitor, who stayed up with me, well, until 6 a.m. my time, and then it was still really late his time as well. We stayed up to finish it and get these final numbers and make sure it was exactly correct. And it was, and let me show you exactly how we got these numbers for Praisemaggedon. So the original proposal in Praisemaggedon was to put people in buckets, to say that the people in the high bucket get a flat amount, the people in the mid bucket get a flat amount, people in the low bucket get a flat amount, and people in the long tail get a flat amount. And Jeff helped us sort exactly out how he imagined that. And then, so Jeff, Livia, and I put people in buckets, and we said these people were the highest contributors, these people were the medium contributors, these people were the low contributors, and this is the long tail of contributors. So we put people in these buckets, and then, but when we looked at it and everyone got the same, it didn't look right. So then, because the people that were in the high bucket, that were just barely made it in the high bucket instead of the medium bucket, they would get, 3 times as many impact hours as the best person in the medium bucket. And really, it's just two people next to each other, right? And we have to draw this line somewhere. So we smoothed out the buckets. We took the buckets, and instead of it being a flat line, flat line, flat line, we went flat line, slanted line, flat line, slanted line, flat line, slanted line, and gave people impact hours along those lines. Also part of Praisemaggedon was that the largest deduction for people who are being paid should be 40%, not 85%. So we scaled that deduction based off of the number of hours people had. So had deducted in the no intervention proposal. So if you had 85% of your hours deducted, then that would look like having 40% of your hours deducted. And we scaled that linearly. So we just made a little algebraic equation that I'll show you in a second that just makes 85% 40% and makes like half of that 20%, half of 85%, 47 point, I don't know, 42.5% would be 20%, and just like draw that line, right? So yeah, and then when we multiplied the scaled payment deduction to the buckets, the smooth buckets, then we got a final output number. So Here we have the, and to, because we have to order the people in buckets, we use the first, so, okay, let's start from the beginning. So for first, people had their, we have people's names and we put them all in buckets. Livia, Jeff, and I did that. And we highlighted people that we weren't sure, that we disagreed with, if they should be medium or high or low. If there were any disagreement, we actually talked about them and like put them, debated which one bucket they should go in, taking into consideration how many impact hours they had. If we thought that they had too many impact hours for their relative contribution, then we put them in a lower bucket, knowing they would be at the top of the lower bucket. If they didn't have enough impact hours based off their contribution, then we put them in a higher bucket, knowing they'd be at the bottom of that bucket. And that was just, this is what happens when you have 3 people in a room just determining things, right? They just do the best they can with their subjective opportunity to create a good result. And that's what we did. And then we put people in the buckets, and then we smoothed out the buckets by just decrementing the, the bottom part of the bucket based off of their total impact hours that they got ignoring deductions. So people were ordered within a bucket based off of how many impact hours they got total in their bucket. So the person who had the most impact hours in their bucket would be the #1 person in their bucket. And we ignored the deductions. So if you were paid or you weren't paid, it didn't matter. We sorted you in the bucket based off of that, like actually just the core praise and impact hours that you would have gotten, whether you were paid or not. And that was to sort people in the buckets. And then once they were sorted in the buckets, and we smoothed the buckets by making this slanted line. So everyone who was at the top of the bucket, the high bucket, got the same, 1.688% of the total. We did all this math in percentages because that's what we did. And then we deducted a percent out from every single person. So you can see, like, starting at Lauren here, she was the first person to start being on the slanted line. And then Zargam, and then 5IV, and then Suga, and then Gabby. And then it was just like, they're on the slanted line, so this is the percentage they got. And then we had to, okay, now we have to figure out how do we do the deductions. And so we took the total amount of deducted hours that they got and divided it by the total amount of impact hours they would have had ignoring deductions. And then we got a ratio that's like how much deducted hours they had versus how much total impact hours they would have had without deductions. And so in this case, for instance, Sem got a total deduction of about 69%. Nice work, Sem. And so, well, it's not quite right, but either way, then so 69% is how much deducted he got, which means that he actually got 31% of his total impact hours. And so we scaled that 31% to the point that it would be if, instead of it being 15 to 100%, it was 60 to 100%. So if you got like Tam, I think was the most deducted person. She got 15.1% of her total impact hours. And that equated to 60 impact hours, 60% of a deduction in Praisemaggedon. She got 15% of her impact hours in the natural thing, and she got 60% in this one. Sem got 31% of his total impact hours after deductions. And so that turned into 67%. And you can see that Santi didn't get ever paid. So he never got a deduction. So he doesn't get a deduction here either, right? So it's like a nice linear scale. And the math ends up being this unscaled payment deduction ratio times 8/17 plus 9/17. But it works. right? Oh, good old algebra and math. Okay, so now we just have to multiply the payment deduction ratio by the bucket percent, and then we get in a number, an amount that they got, and then we ratio that so that it becomes a percentage, because like this was a percentage, but now we're multiplying it by a percent. So we lose some. Now we end up having to scale it back. And we get a final percent for Praisemaggedon that everyone should get. And we multiply that percentage for each person by the total number of impact hours given in no intervention to get the impact hours that they get in the Praisemaggedon. So that's the Praisemaggedon math. Thank you for checking it out. And you can always find this spreadsheet. It's public, that shows all of the impact hour math. And you can check out how it's done with a little more detail by looking at this Excel sheets. So thank you guys. Thanks for watching and being curious about how everything works. We're doing the best we can. No one. Well, it was quite the compromise in our divided community to make an intervention, but yeah, I think it worked out the best that it could. And sometimes, and the TEC is doing politics differently. Like we are trying to create an actual bottom-up grassroots system that people can design their own economy, but unfortunately, this involves politics, because politics are really about people discussing how to govern shared resources collectively. And the economy is a shared resource that we should be politicking around, that we should be discussing how it is changing. And things can get a little tense. And so, but in normal politics, it's just derisive, right? People over on one side are like, we hate you, we hate you, we hate you. Other people are like, we hate you, we hate you. Your ideas, these ideas don't match. And then it's just horrible on Twitter and Facebook, and no one's listening to each other. And we need to do it differently. We need to set a tone that compromise is a good place to be. And so instead, we don't have the politicians to compromise in back rooms. We have to compromise openly together. And that's what we did. So thank you guys for listening to this and experimenting with us in a new foundational system for economics. Thank you guys. Bye. See if I can figure out how to turn off this screen, share screen. There it is. Okay, now bye for real.